Michelle. How are you?
Hi, Dominic. I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. So nice to be talking to you again.
Yes, nice to talk to you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely. I'm pretty excited actually because I'm a fan of what you talk about. I love this topic. The people who listen to this show know I talk about this topic. So I think it's about time we had, maybe a real expert talk about it. Can you tell us about yourself and why you be talking to all these contractors?
Absolutely. So, I've been in this industry for a little over 20 years. I'm not going to bore you with my whole past, but I've really always been an entrepreneur and I've always owned different small businesses. I did kind of get stuck in corporate America working for a Fortune 500 company, Xerox, that small company,
that
Xerox.
little company.
But
Yeah.
anyway, I left Xerox and got into franchise sales, franchise development, franchise consulting. And then I transitioned into selling businesses. At first, small businesses, like restaurants, car washes, laundromats, pizzerias, things of that nature. And then very quickly, I transitioned into selling larger businesses, $10 million dollars and up. And I
Mm,
pretty much have sold businesses in every single industry. I personally have sold over 500 businesses. My company, along with me, have sold over 1,000 businesses.
that's
We've
great.
done thousands of business evaluations. I did learn very quickly, Dominic, when I got into this industry, though, that according to Steve Forbes, 8 out of 10 businesses will not sell. Eight out
Well,
of
they're not
10.
set up to be sold, are they?
They are not set up to be sold. And that's when I learned very quickly that either I need to start fixing these businesses, restructuring these businesses, and building these businesses to sell, or I would starve to death. So that's when I kind of transitioned not only into selling larger businesses, but also fixing, growing businesses. So my core competency really is buying, selling, fixing, growing. So I buy businesses and flip them. I
Right.
partner with business owners and I invest my money, my time, my energy, my efforts, my resources. Sometimes I'll bring in a partner like you that has a different set of skills than I do. Because, I always say focus on your strengths, hire your weaknesses, or partner with your weaknesses.
Yeah.
And so I put those businesses on what I call a build to sell program so they can sell for their desired price
I
tag.
love it.
So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, that's a little. I know there's more to that story behind you,
Uh-huh.
and you've got this book coming out called Exit Rich, so that all your years of wisdom and experience, I guess, have gone into this new book.
Yes, all of my years, 20 years in the trenches of selling businesses and franchises and owning businesses,
Mm,
I went into this book. And I'm also very proud to say that Sharon Lecter, who wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad with Robert
that's right.
Kiyosaki
Yeah.
and several books in the Napoleon Hill Foundation, she also authored the book with me and she wrote what we called a mentoring corner. And what's interesting about Sharon's perspective is her perspective is a little bit different than mine because I'm in the trenches, right? She's a CPA and a financial literacy expert. She's
Yeah.
been an advisor to several different presidents. And what's even nicer than that is her husband is an intellectual property attorney. So I really got two for one. And so they both add their feedback from their perspective, from
Right.
their core competencies in what we call the mentoring corner and Exit Rich.
It's so great that you're putting this out there because, as you've probably seen, Michelle, from your, as you call it, years in the trenches, and I've seen this as a business coach and an entrepreneur of my own, most businesses are not sellable because they're not buyable. Like there's
Right.
nothing to buy. It's maybe being run by the owner, on the shoulders of the owner, in the head of the owner. There's no systems, there's no processes. And for all the
Right.
hard work they've put in, they really haven't ever taken the time maybe to read a book like yours or talk to people like you and I
Right.
to make it a thing, a sellable thing. How do you start? Where do you start if you're an owner in that boat?
Yeah, I like the statement that you just made, and I'm probably going to steal it. I think is that businesses are not sellable because they're not buyable.
Yeah,
I love that. I'm stealing that, and
take
that's
it.
so true. And you got to think about this. I always tell my clients, put yourself in the put yourself in the buyer's shoes. You want $20 million for your business. Your EBITDA is $100,000. Would you pay $20 million for this business for $100 million for $100,000 in EBITDA? And of course, they're like, no, I would never do that.
Yeah,
So, where do they start? Well, here's where you start. First, step one is to, get Exit Rich. And I'm not just saying that because I have a book out there, but Exit Rich is really the step by step blueprint. Steve Forbes calls it the gold mine for entrepreneurs. If Steve Forbes is the one who says 8 out of 10 businesses won't sell, he's when it says read Exit Rich and plan your exit from day one of starting or buying a business.
Yeah.
So that's really step one is read Exit Rich. But let's get into some of the content. The first thing is plan your exit. Dominic, it's interesting because we plan our estate, right? So if we own homes, if we own real estate, we have money, we get a will, we have a succession plan, we do all that, right? If we have children, we plan where they're going to go to preschool, kindergarten, high school, college, have kids. We plan what they're going to be. We say, oh, you're going to be a doctor. No, mommy, I don't want to be a doctor. Yeah, you're going to be a doctor, right? We plan out their life. We plan out our life, but we don't plan for our biggest asset, which is our business.
Yeah.
And so really business owners I call it the GPS exit model, the ST GPS exit model.
Right.
And it's simply, when you want to drive somewhere, what do? You pull out a phone.
Right.
And what do you see my cute little daughter? And what do you plug in? You plug in your destination where you want to go, right?
Right.
The problem with business owners is they're just driving aimlessly around and around and around, really going nowhere because they never plugged in their destination. They never determined their end game. They never determined their sales price.
Yeah.
So they really need to start with a destination in mind and say, okay, I want to sell my business for $15 million. Okay, well, now you know your destination. Now you're not going to just drive around aimlessly. You got a place to go. You got a target. So you're going to sell for $15 million. Now you need to know, what's my current location? Because the GPS always knows where you're starting from.
Right.
Oh, where you're starting from. So what's your current location, your current valuation, right?
Yeah.
So the business owner needs to get an evaluation done. And, it's interesting to me, Dominic, that so many people will get a health checkup once a year. We'll get a car checked up, our car checked up and tuned, but we never get a business checkup. We never get a business valuation.
Yeah.
Nobody ever knows what their business is worth. You should know what your business is worth every year, because every year things can happen to decrease the value or increase the value. There are so many industries right now that are dying because COVID decreased the value. There are so many industries that are thriving because COVID increased the value.
Yeah.
So you should always know what your business is worth.
If I want to increase the value of my business, should I own my real estate or should I always lease or rent my real estate?
So that's a great question. And the answer is, it depends.
That's not what I wanted to hear, because I keep telling people, you've got to own your real estate. I live in a city where real estate values are insane. And in many cases, roofing companies are getting bought out because their industrial lot is getting turned into a condo. And they're going to make more for the sale of that land than they ever would have in that business.
So I always say it's better to own the real estate. However, here's why it depends. This is the reason. Because some buyers will not buy the real estate.
Oh, perfect. I'm happy with that.
So it's not going to necessarily increase the value of the business, but it could increase the value of the real estate, because if you're on a corner prime location and CVS pharmacy or Walgreens or McDonald's or whoever wants that corner location, if the business is location is branded upon location loyalty and not convenience loyalty, meaning that people are not just going to you because you have a convenient location, then move the business and sell it to Walgreens.
Right.
Am I making sense?
Yeah, I was looking at it from the perspective that I could sell the business and keep the real estate and be the landlord in my retirement or,
but that doesn't necessarily increase the value of the business. It could increase the value of your retirement. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily increase the value of the business. The only way that would really increase the value of the business, and let's say that you have prime real estate, and a buyer wants to buy the real estate, because not all buyers will buy real estate. PEGs hardly ever buy real estate.
What is it? Sorry, PEGs?
PEGs, private equity groups.
Okay.
They don't buy real estate. They don't like real estate because they'd rather use their money on EBITDA, on chasing EBITDA.
EBITDA. So Michelle, you and I understand what EBITDA is, but can you just very quickly?
Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. EBITDA.
Right. EBITDA. Yeah. Wonderful word. EBITDA.
So anyway, so that really depends upon, what the industry is, who the buyer is. It could increase the value of the business if the real estate is on prime location. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Also, it can increase the value if, let's say that you're paying yourself $1 million a year rent.
Right.
And you're only going to charge $300,000 a year rent.
To yourself.
To yourself. No,
right.
no. Let's say you own the real estate in a separate corporation.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually paying your separate corporation $1 million a year in rent.
Okay.
You're going to charge the new owner, let's just say $500,000. Let's up it a little bit, $500,000 in rent. Right?
Right.
That other $500,000 goes to increasing the EBITDA, which increases the value of the business.
I see. So you're splitting it strategically.
Correct. Because you're paying yourself $1 million a year is probably not market rent. You're paying yourself more money for rent, so you can put more money in that other corporation, hence put more money in your pocket, right? But you're not going to charge $1 million to the new owner because, number one, it's way above market rent, and it will probably kill the deal that the buyer's not going to pay that, right?
Yeah.
So you just charge $500,000, add that $500,000 back to EBITDA, and then they pay a multiple of EBITDA.
This is all part of running the business on purpose, like we originally started talking about, which is you can't just expect to sell the business one day magically in 0 months, and when you decide to sell it, it's not going to happen in 2 weeks. You're not going to get a premium unless you have done the right things for the 20 years leading up to the day when you decide to sell, whether it's to family and friends or a management team.
Right. And it's like that one question. There's thousands of questions like that. Thousands of questions that could or could not affect value, right? And it just really depends.
Yeah. When you deal with manufacturing companies, because I'm sure you've seen that a lot before, companies that are processing raw goods, they've got inventory, they've got some sort of processing machinery in the middle, and then they ship to customers. What are the factors you see contributing to exiting for more versus really taking a bath when you need it the most?
So it's really the same in any industry. We evaluate businesses on 6 different methods. One of those being the 6 Ps. And the 6 Ps is what we talk about in Exit Rich. One thing I wanted, before we get too far though, I did want to finish that exit model if that's okay.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm ready to take notes here, Michelle. I'm acting like this is a class, so I'm listening. Sometimes I'll ask questions, but why don't you go ahead and you lead us through this conversation?
Yeah, so let me finish the exit model real quick. So remember, let's say if you want to sell your business, because this is going to help you through the 6 Ps. So let's say you want to sell the business for $15 million. That's your destination, right? Because remember, the reason businesses don't sell is because they were never planned to sell. So let's say your current valuation is worth $3 million. You're worth $3 million today. You want to sell for $15 million. Let's say your time frame is 7 years. Okay. Now you need to reverse engineer it. So now you have the destination. You have your current valuation. You know your time frame. Now you need to know who the buyers are going to be. There's 5 types of buyers. Here's who the buyers will not be. You will not sell to a first-time buyer because in all likelihood, they cannot afford a $15 million company.
Right. Yeah.
You're not going to sell to a turnaround specialist because they buy distressed assets, right? So you'll sell to the other 3 buyers, which is a PEG, private equity group, or private equity groups by 2 ways, platforms and add-ons, or you'll sell to a strategic / competitor, or you'll sell to a sophisticated serial entrepreneur. Those 3 buyers. And those 3 buyers have different negotiating tactics, different things, different hot buttons, different things they buy. They don't buy, like private equity groups do not buy real estate. Okay. So those are your 3 types of buyers. Then you need to know, well, what's their financial requirement? In order for them to buy a $15 million business, where does the gross revenues need to be? Where's the profit margins need to be? Most importantly, where does the EBITDA need to be? Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. Well, if you want to sell for $15 million, you better get close to a $3 million EBITDA.
Okay? If you're getting a 5 times valuation.
If you're going to get 5 times valuation. But here's the caveat to that. The higher the EBITDA, the higher the multiple.
Oh.
The higher the EBITDA, the higher the multiple.
Interesting. Now, Michelle, can we just come to a point here where I ask you to explain a couple of these terms, because in a lot of cases, the people who are listening to this show have gotten to where they are today just through their ability to lift heavy weights over their head. Like, they are just hardworking people who made a couple of smart moves. But in general, they didn't take maybe the types of courses that you've taken that have taught you this stuff. So some of these words like valuation and EBITDA are new words. They're just learning these words, and they want to understand the implication and the impact and how to make the most of them. Can you give us just a brief overview of some of these key terms? We already
EBITDA?
talked about EBITDA.
Okay.
What's valuation? What's multiples? What are those things?
Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, you just got to slow me down.
No, that's okay. But I'm trying to think of the audience here, because I know them really well. They might be going, oh yeah, multiples. But do we really know what a multiple is? Do we really know what the valuation is?
Yeah. So valuation, valuation, it's what the business is worth. Like an appraisal on a house, right?
Mm,
An appraisal on a house, you know what the house is worth, what the house appraises for based upon comps, mainly,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
Same thing with commercial real estate. So in business, a valuation is composed of, we do 6 different methods, where other brokers will do like 2 or 3. So we base it upon the income approach. And I won't have time to explain all of these terms.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, there's multiple ways of doing it, right?
Market approach, right? So we have 6 different ways that we evaluate what a business is worth. And then we always take into consideration the buyer's sanity check, the seller's sanity check, and by the way, what the bank will lend on. So we look at all these aspects when we're evaluating what a business is worth. So it's very important every year to know what your business is worth. Now, why is that important? Well, it's really important because you want to sell at the height. You want to sell at the top. You don't want to sell at the bottom. And there's industries right now that are really busting at the seams because of COVID.
Yeah.
Their business is the best it's ever been. This is the time they should be selling. Now, they're not going to get an evaluation based upon this 1 year, because this could be an anomaly. So that's why we want to run projections and base it on maybe a 3-year average or a 5-year average. So we're not just putting all the evaluation on 1 year on 2020, and then also normalize that out through projections.
Okay.
Does that make more sense?
It does. Yeah.
So when you're planning that exit, you want to know who your buyers are going to be. And I say buyers. You never want one buyer, because I guarantee you that one buyer will fall apart and you'll have no backup buyers.
Yeah.
And so you want to know, what is their financial requirement? A lot of buyers, some buyers will say, look, I'm not paying more than 5 times, or I'm not paying more than 4 times, or I'm not paying more than this or that. We really need to know what their buying criteria is.
Mm-hmm.
Then we need to know what the characteristics are. So if they want to buy something in manufacturing, what is the requirement to buy a company in manufacturing? Do they require a management team? Do they require the owner to stay on? Do they require an earn out for the upside of the business? Yeah. Do they require a piece of seller financing? Like, we really want to know all of these things, right? And so listeners might be saying, well, gosh, how would I ever know that? Simple. You call somebody like me, because I know. I know pretty much for every industry.
Yeah. You have to get into the conversation. That's why I'm so proud of the people who listen to the show, because they're part of the conversation now. They're learning from you. They're learning from me and the other guests. This is the kind of discussion that so many people just let slip past them, and then they get caught by surprise when the time comes to sell.
Right. And not only that, but it's not what you know that gets you in trouble. It's what you don't know. So that's why it's really important to read as many books as you can get your hands on, listen to thought leaders like yourself, hire an expert or a mentor, or partner with a mentor, or align yourself, with a mentor's group, so that you can really learn from experts, somebody who's already been down your path before. But when you're building out this GPS exit model, then the next step is, okay, what characteristics or what synergies are the buyers buying? Buyers buy synergies. Buyers will pay a higher multiple. So here's what a multiple is. A multiple, so there's different ways to evaluate a business. Some is based, Some is based a percentage of revenues. Now, I have clients that come in and tell me, well, Michelle, my CPA told me that I could get 4 times revenues or 3 times revenues. I'm like, great, call your CPA. Tell them to buy your business.
Tell them to buy your business. Yeah, that's the
I said,
wrong.
because nobody pays a multiple of it. So I'm here to tell all your listeners, listen to me. Don't listen to your CPA this time. Nobody pays a multiple of revenues. It's never happened. I've been in business for over 20 years. It doesn't happen. The only time something like that would ever happen is if you have a SaaS business technology, then maybe.
Yeah.
But in other industries, absolutely not.
SaaS is software as a service, right?
Software as a service. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And definitely not in construction are they going to pay a multiple. No industry other than SaaS will that happen. So they might pay a percentage of revenue. So when we do valuations, we look at all the different methods to see which one's best for our client, obviously.
Of course.
And so a percentage of revenue, or it could be a multiple of SDE, which is seller's discretionary earnings.
Yeah.
Most larger businesses are multiple of EBITDA, and a multiple or EBIT, earnings before interest and taxes. But I like a multiple of EBITDA, especially in construction companies, because I want to add back the depreciation.
Right.
So EBITDA is earnings before interest. We add back interest, we add back taxes, we add back depreciation, we add back amortization, and then we normalize financials and add back personal expenses, non-reoccurring, and things of that nature.
Yeah. Okay. This is new conversation for a bunch of listeners, and I'm so glad you're walking us through it. People are paying for cash flow. They want to buy your business as if it's a little bank machine, a little ATM. They're going to put money in and they expect money to keep shooting back out. And if it's not, if you don't have the systems in place, the processes in place, it's not good. It won't sell because it's not viable.
Dominic, that's a great transition to the 6 Ps because we just covered the STGPS exit model. We kind of went into a little bit to valuations. Let's talk about the foundation. Okay. So your listeners are construction, and I love construction companies. I have so many construction companies. And what I love about construction is you start with a foundation, right? And if you don't dig deep down and build that foundation, what happens?
Yeah.
What happens?
The Tower of Pisa. You've got problems.
Tower of Pisa, yeah. Yeah. The roof caves in. I've been to the Tower of Pisa. The roof caves in, the walls fall, everything. The whole house, your mansion, comes crumbling down. So construction industry knows this better than anybody. So what you do to build a house or what you do to build a commercial property, you need to build in your business. Yeah. So think about the foundation of the 6 Ps as a foundation of you building a commercial property or building a house. Okay. So the number 1 P, which is probably the most important to buyers, is people. Because you said it earlier. They don't want to buy a job. And a lot of these businesses are dependent upon the owner. And let's talk specifically in construction because they are, like you said, they're hardworking people, right? Hardworking people. And they do some things really smart. I want construction people to set their families up for success. Let me give you an example. I had a call from a lady in Texas, very distraught. She's probably in her 60s. Husband died of a massive heart attack, unexpected. Been in construction for 30, 40 years. Yeah. It's a general contractor. Had probably 50, 75, 100 1099s. Subcontractors.
Right.
Didn't really build a foundation. She didn't know anything about the business. Yeah. The business was not built on the 6 Ps that we're about to get into. There was no real solid foundation. No real business for her to take over and run it because he never taught her anything, but it wasn't sellable. And the reason it wasn't sellable, and here's the biggest takeaway, it wasn't sellable because the whole business was dependent upon him.
Yeah. He was just a big project manager.
He was a big project manager.
Yeah.
Yes, and he made good money, and yes, he provided for his family, but now his wife, because they didn't have a good succession plan, and he can't sell his business, she's having a hard time. She's really struggling financially.
Oh, gee.
So build a business on a solid foundation that can be sold if something was to happen to you. So those proceeds can go to support your family, your loved ones. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's such a sad story. And it happens so often.
Happens so often. And I wanted to tell the story because it's in the construction industry and it happens over and over and over and over again. Look, one of my best friends owned half of New Orleans real estate wise, and he lost everything in '08, you know?
Oh,
So, but in your business, construction business, any industry, I don't care what industry you're in, build a business on the 6 P's. Number one is people. If he had people and not just subcontractors, he would have had something to sell.
right.
So, number one is people. You have to have the right people in the right seat, and you have to ask the question who? Who deals with clients? Who deals with um, who does the bidding in your organization? Who deals with clients? Who deals with customer service? Who does the bids?
Mhm.
Who's the project manager? You know, who handles customer complaints? Who handles environmental issues? Who handles manufacturing? Who handles transportation? Who? Here's a clue, Dominic. Never put you next to the who.
Yeah. You know what? If you want to grow, Michelle, you're so right. If you want to grow this business, you should appear very few times on the organizational chart.
Yeah.
You
And if you're
cannot
going
be
to
in every
appear,
box. Yeah.
that's right. That's right. In the who, your name should never be next to anything in the who. You're the visionary and you're up here,
Yeah.
and that's where your name appears. Your
Guiding
name
people.
shouldn't appear anywhere else. And that's the biggest reason that businesses can't sell is because a business is too dependent upon the owner. Take a dentist practice. You know, we have a dental practice right now. We're actually selling a $70 million agriculture business. And they said, look, can you sell our friend's dental practice? And I said, sure, let me look at it. One dentist, been in practice for 30 years, no
Yeah.
associates whatsoever, a couple of dental assistants.
Okay.
Very hard. I said, the only way that this business could be sold is he's going to have to stay on for
Yeah.
a period of time. And the sale of the business is going to be predicated on him staying on. So he's going to get paid on installments, so much
Yeah.
up front and in installments.
That's right. Because people are going to buy the base of patience, that customer base. That's all it's worth.
Well, it's worth it's worth the whole business as long as he stays on. If he doesn't stay on, then the clients
The
leave.
clients,
The
yeah, they
patients-
just
the patients
evaporate.
leave.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and that's a lot of businesses. That's construction, that's chiropractic, that's dentists, that's real estate appraisers, that's
That's your
interior
construction business.
decorators.
If people call you because they know you and they just call, they're not dealing with anybody else in your business. If you get bids as a construction professional because people know Johnny and they call Johnny, I'm sorry to say it, that's not a scalable business.
It's not. So
Yeah.
you really want to think of it, you really want to grow. So unfortunately, a lot of entrepreneurs think that they have built a business. What they really have built is a job. So you want to build a business that works for you rather than you working for it.
Mhm.
So especially in the construction industry, because they all want to do it themselves, right? You really need to focus on people probably more than any other industry,
Mm.
and really try to. And listen, some of your listeners might be saying, "Well, look, lady, I don't have money to do that." And let me tell you something: you can't afford not to, because if you don't have an assistant, you are the assistant.
Oh, nice.
And there's lots of things that you can do. You can get interns, maybe not to go out and work construction work, but they can work in the office. They can learn how to do bids. They can learn, different types of stuff in construction, like engineering and things like that. There's all kinds of different things. I'm in between 4 different colleges. We're on a wait list of interns, so we have interns all the time. You can also hire, get 1099s to come in and work in the office for a little bit, or even start with a part-time. But, a lot of businesses say, well, I can't afford to do that. Well, I'm here to tell you, can't afford not to do that, because if you don't pull yourself out of the business
Yeah.
and start working on the business instead of in the business, you're never really going to grow the business.
Yeah. And just for the sake of our listeners who are not in the United States, a 1099 is a subcontractor.
Independent contractor, right?
Independent
Subcontractor.
contractor. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's different rules and regulations that have to be followed for 1099s as well. All right. So the second P, are you ready for me to move on to the second P?
Yeah, I'm taking notes. I've got lots under people already, but go ahead.
Product. So you have to ask yourself, is your industry, your product dying or thriving? Are you an Amazon or are you a Blockbuster?
Mm.
Okay. Even the construction industry has highs and lows, right? When there's a recession, building stops. Now, renovations might explode, but building new construction stops, right? In a recession, new construction stops, maybe renovations explode. Even with COVID right now, new construction is really down, but renovations are up because people are staying home and spending more money in their home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to look at your industry and say, is it on the way up or on the way out? Do you have an Amazon or do you have a Blockbuster? If you have a Blockbuster, then you need to use my other P, which is pivot.
Is that number 3?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's not even part of the 6 Ps.
Oh, it's not a part of the
I
6
just came up
Ps.
with pivot during COVID.
Okay.
But you do have to ask yourself 3 questions. And I think these questions are important for your listeners because a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs are transactional. They're not transformational. Transactional, not transformational. Here's an example. So if you're in an industry that's dying, let's say that some of your listeners are in new build right now and they're struggling. So you have to ask yourself these 3 questions. Number 1, what business am I in? Number 2, what do I do really well?
Yeah.
Number 3, what business should we be in? That's the whole pivot part. So I'll give you an example to illustrate. Did you ever watch the movie The Founder?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. We haven't talked about this before, right?
No.
So the movie The Founder, remember McDonald's brothers started McDonald's. Ray Kroc came in and blew McDonald's up, and some people would say stole McDonald's
from the McDonald's brothers. Yeah.
So remember Ray Kroc was in the bank, and he was already upside down, had already taken out a mortgage against his house.
He's way leveraged.
Franchisees were not compliant. He wasn't making any money. McDonald's was paying him a very small percentage of royalties. And so he's trying to borrow money. And the banker said, no, you're already upside down. I can't lend you more money. So he walks out of the bank. And you remember the gentleman, he might have been an attorney, I don't remember, but he followed him out of the bank. And he said, listen, I just happened to overhear a conversation and I think I can help you. And he goes, but I have a few questions for you.
Right.
And Ray's like, okay. And he goes, what business are you in? And Ray Kroc goes, I'm in the restaurant business, the fast food restaurant business. He goes, no, that's not the business you're in. He goes, what do you mean? That's the business I am.
Yeah.
The gentleman said, what business should you be in? And Ray's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And he goes, you need to be in the real estate business.
That's right.
You need to be buying the real estate and building the restaurants on the property in a separate corporation that you own, not McDonald's. And then you lease them out to franchisees. And when the franchisees are not compliant, then you void their franchise agreement and you put another franchisee in.
Yeah.
Those questions that Ray Kroc was asked is what changed his trajectory forever. I don't think McDonald's would have ever become McDonald's if he wasn't asked those questions.
If they didn't ask the basic questions. Yeah.
And McDonald's is the largest till this day. And Ray Kroc is long dead. Till this day, they're the largest real estate holding company in the world.
Yeah.
In the world. I'm going to give you one more quick example because this is a quick one. I wanted to use the real estate one because, construction. But here's a quick one. Amazon. Amazon asked themselves, what business are we in? They said, we're in the book selling business. We sell books. What do we do really, 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 really well?
Ship anywhere.
And he says,
anything, anywhere.
Fulfillment.
Yeah.
And they said, what business should we be in? We should be in a fulfillment business. Those 3 questions is what transformed Amazon from booksellers into a worldwide multi-billion-dollar conglomerate that they are today with those 3 questions.
I want to make sure we hit the rest of these 6 Ps before we end this interview. So we've got people, we've got product. What are the next 4?
Processes. But I got to give a little bit of a definition instead of just telling you what it is. So processes, I'm going to bring you back to the movie The Founder again.
You love that movie. Yeah.
All the listeners should watch that movie. So processes should be designed with the customer experience in mind because we're in business for the customer, right? No customers, no business. If you have no customers, you have no business. So in The Founder, McDonald's started McDonald's back in the 40s because they had the drive-up restaurants where you would come out, waitresses would come out on roller skates, right? The food, like a Sonic. But back then, the food was cold, the order was wrong, and it always took so long. So McDonald's said, what is our mission? What's our objective? What do we want our customer experience to be? They said we want our customer experience to be oh my gosh, this is great tasting food.
Yeah. It's
It's
warm.
great tasting food. It's hot. It's not
Yeah.
cold. And it's 2 minutes or less. McDonald's said, how are we going to do that? So remember, they went out to the empty tennis court and they bought all their employees and they drew out the
They
processes
drew it right on the court. Yeah. I love
right on the
that.
court. They erased it, drew it again, erased it. They were there all day trying to determine who takes order, who toasts the buns, who cooks the burgers, who puts the pickles on the buns, who gives it to the client. Those processes right there, even though they've been tweaked, is why you can go to McDonald's in Singapore, Russia, Australia, USA, and get the same experience. So always design your processes with the customer experience in mind. Make sure they're efficient, productive, well documented, and your employees are well trained on all.
Love it. So
that's
number
process.
3 is process. What's number 4?
Proprietary. Now,
Proprietary.
This is the biggest one. And let me tell you why it's the biggest one. It's the biggest value driver. This will get you the highest multiple. And the reason why this is the biggest value driver is because this is where all your synergies are. Okay. Synergies. The more well-branded you are, the more I can sell your business for. The more well-branded you are, the more I can sell your business for. All right. And as long as that brand is still relevant in the mind of the consumer.
Right.
Who's going to pay a lot of money for Blockbuster? Nobody, because Blockbuster went bust, right?
Right.
However, the biggest brand in the world is
Nike, Apple. Yeah.
Apple. Apple's worth $389 billion. That's just a brand. That's not the EBITDA. That's not cash. That's not inventory assets, anything else. That's just the brand is worth $389 billion. Build your brand.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing that this industry really needs to know.
Yeah.
Trademarks. A lot of business owners, almost all business owners go out there, they open up a business, Dominic, and they get a state trademark. They never check the federal database to make sure that that company name is available. Then they're in business for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and all of a sudden they get a cease and desist letter. And guess what?
They've got to change
because
their
you
name.
have to stop using your company name
Your
because
trade
somebody
name.
else owns that federal trademark.
Yeah.
So then you got to change your name and start all over. So get the trademark. It will cost you $1,500 to $2,000. It's worth it in the long run. If you have anything proprietary, like I even got Exit Rich registered. Okay. So make sure you get that federal trademark. Also, if you have anything unique, and look, I've sold lots of construction companies and I've sold some that have some patents. So if you have anything unique, get a patent on it. You ever watch Shark Tank? What do they ask? Do you have a patent? Do you have a patent? Do you have a patent? Do you have a patent?
Are you, because they want your intellectual property rights preserved or respected, or they're only interested in investing if they have some intellectual property asset.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Contracts are very important too. Manufacturing, distribution, franchisor contracts, client contracts are the most valuable of them all. And the reason for that is because you said it earlier.
Yeah.
Buyers want to come in and buy a cash machine.
That's right.
I want to make sure money is coming out. And contracts demonstrate that the business is well established and the business has money coming out of it. You know, they like recurring revenues. They like to know, even in construction, they like to know you have a good WIP, work in progress report.
Yeah.
You know, so contracts are huge, and construction companies do have contracts. We're working with right now that we can sell for about $70 to $80 million. And they have contracts. Now, it's a big construction company. They do about $15 million in EBITDA, 12 to 15. Now, listen, here's a caveat. Now, you need to listen to this one.
Yeah.
If you have a contract, make sure, because nobody ever does this, that you have the 2-sentence transferability clause in your contract. If your contracts are not transferable, it could stop the sale of your business, because 99.9% of all sales are asset sales, not stock sales. And if your contracts don't have transferability language, you really could lose on the sale of your business.
Yeah. I think that's worth repeating for our listeners, is you have to be able to transfer the contracts to somebody else, right? So if the contract is with me, Dominic Rubino, and Michelle comes along to buy it, if I don't have that ability in the contracts, Michelle can't buy it. I can't sell it. And so just the addition of that simple little, would you say 2 lines?
2 lines.
Changes the value of your business. It's worth adding. Transferability clause. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, you know, because here's the deal. The buyer could change their mind and say, okay, I'll do a stock sale, but in all likelihood, they won't.
No, it's not tax advantageous.
they'll
Yeah.
just go to the next company and buy the next company in the market.
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
too easy to do. Yeah, they don't have to buy you, they can buy somebody else. And
Right.
that's why understanding, as you said, who your ideal buyer is important, because if you build something that looks the way your ideal buyer wants it to look, as a company, you're going to stand out in the market. But if you just look like everybody else, they're just going to go buy somebody else. They're not going to buy you.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's these synergies that we're talking about right now. So database is another big one. Databases are huge. Facebook paid $19 billion for WhatsApp, and WhatsApp was hemorrhaging money, but they had 1 billion users,
Yeah.
and Facebook knew that they can monetize and ROI those billion users. So those are synergies that buyers are willing to pay more for. They'll pay more for contracts. They'll pay more for databases. They'll pay more for clients. They'll pay more for trademarks. They'll pay more for patents.
And that's all under proprietary. What's number 5?
There's more in the proprietary, but I'm going to skip it and get to number 5.
Okay.
Number 5 is Patreons. This is your customer base.
Ah.
So you want to have a diversified customer base.
Mhm.
If you're in construction, who's your customer base? Are you dealing with commercial? Are you dealing with contractors? Are you dealing
Yeah.
with homeowners? Who are you dealing with?
I have to put an exclamation mark on this for you, because I know people listening are not getting the impact of this statement. What Michelle is saying is that if you look at all of your work for the last year, and most of your work came from 1 or 2 contractors, general contractors, you are in trouble. You cannot have 80% of your work coming from one large GC. I mean, you can, as you've proven, but you're in trouble, because if that GC stops sending you business, you've lost 80% of your work. Sorry, Michelle, I just had to put an underline on that because it's brilliant.
Because I always say that 80%, most businesses follow the 80-20 rule, which is 80% of your revenues comes from 20% of your clients.
Yeah.
And if it is tied up in 1 or 2 or 3 clients, and you lose 1 or 2, you're in big trouble. Plus, it's not sellable, because buyers are not going to buy it. It's too risky.
It's risk. Yeah, it's
if
too
they
risky.
buy it, they're going to mitigate their risk by requiring you to do seller financing and an earnout. So they might still buy it, but not at favorable terms.
Yeah, we should have you back to talk about the problems of an earnout. I'm gonna leave that, because that in itself could be another entire hour.
I'm probably one of the only advisors that doesn't charge a commission on the earnout. Everybody else I know, all of my peers, they do. And I'm like, why would you charge a commission on the earnout? I don't think it's fair. So I don't charge. When my clients take an earnout, I don't take commissions on the earnout.
I just see earnouts as problematic, but we'll get to that.
They are problematic.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
I only like earnouts to bridge the gap of evaluation when there's a huge anomaly in 1 year. You follow what I'm saying? So let's say 2020 was a great year.
Oh, I see. So if you had a 2008 versus 2007 or something, right.
And a seller thinks that this is going to carry on to 2021, 22, 23, and the buyer doesn't think it is.
Yeah.
And so there's a gap in evaluation. Then I like to use it on that gap from what the seller thinks, what the buyer thinks.
Yeah.
Other than that, I really don't like to use them. Okay. So then also I want to tell you this too on customers. You want customer diversification, not customer concentration, but very important too. Very important too is if you've been in business 30, 40, 50 years, your customers might be aging out. So you gotta look at replacing them. And now remember, if you've been in business 30, 40, 50 years, your clients are baby boomers. Gen X and millennials don't buy the same way that this generation buys. Millennials are not even buying homes. So you really have to take that stuff into consideration, right?
That's brilliant.
Because you always have to, you always have to aim. You always have to aim. No matter how long you've been in business, you always have to aim. Aim is always innovate and market.
I like that. That's good. Thank you.
Always innovate and market. All right. And then the last P, and the most important one to all of your listeners, is profit. Profit.
Why would I need to operate at a profit, Michelle? That sounds crazy.
Money. Yeah. But here's the thing with profit. Profit is never the problem. Never. It's always a symptom of not operating on one of the other 5 Ps. I have clients that come in and say, Michelle, I got a profit problem. I'm like, no, you have a people problem. Or no, you have a process problem. Or no, you have a product problem. Your industry is dying right now. You need to pivot and we need to diversify. I don't like all my eggs in one basket. That's why I own different businesses in different industries in different states. Because I was here when Hurricane Katrina came in and wiped out New Orleans. So from that point, I said, I will never own all my business in one state.
Are you from New Orleans originally?
No, I'm from Long Beach, California.
Oh, okay.
I'm raised in Texas.
I really like what you said there. Profit. If I'm having a trouble with profit, profit's just a symptom of the other P's. And I think that's a really good thing for us to sort of look internally. If you're listening to this show, I hope you are, think about that. If you're having a profit problem, that's only what's showing up. There's some other input that's causing that problem.
It's a symptom. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
never the
great.
problem. And I'll give you a couple of examples. If you don't have checks and balances and you're not inspecting what you expect and you're trusting but not verifying, and you have somebody embezzling money from you, there's your profit problem. And it happens more
Oh
times
my
than
goodness, it
not.
just happened the other day. And I feel so bad. You know, I have a report that I put out to my listeners. It's called "Is My Bookkeeper Stealing from Me?" Complete with the red flags, and people don't want to download it, and I don't know why, because it can happen. But
Because it's
Michelle,
very scary. Yeah.
let's do this, because I really want people to know how to find you if they want to talk to you more, because I feel like an hour is not enough to talk to you. But also, you've got the new book coming out. So
Do.
how do we find more Michelle if we need more Michelle?
All right. So go to number one, get the book. Okay. So the book is in pre-sales right now. It'll be out in January. It's available on Amazon, but go buy it at exitrichbook.com, because it's less expensive than Amazon. It's $24.79, which includes shipping, and you don't have to wait till January. We will email you the digital download so you can start reading it today. Then we will ship the hardcover to your doorstep for the $24.79.
Brilliant.
Plus, we will give you a lifetime membership into Exit Rich Book Club, where there's lots more video training and content of me going into deep dives of some of these things. And there's documents. Every business needs documents. Clients are like, Michelle, I've never seen an employee handbook or an employee or an organizational chart. I have no idea what a non-compete looks like. I have no idea what a letter of intent looks like. I don't know what due diligence looks like, or the closing docs look like. They're all there. Every document that you need to run your business or sell your business is there.
I love it.
Always adding more documents, and you can review them and download them. Plus, you'll get a 30-day membership in the Club CEOs, which is a like-minded entrepreneurial club that I started. Where we go on and, like you said, interaction with the community. We're asking those transformational questions and helping business owners really become transformational instead of transactional, so that they can not only survive but thrive on the other side of this.
You know what I love most about what you just said there is that you hit a whole bunch of P's in one explanation of your own, process, proprietary, Patreons, and profit in just a couple of the bonuses or the benefits that people get from the book.
Right.
That's fantastic. I'm so happy that you guys wrote that book, because it's an underserved need. This is something that we don't talk about enough.
We don't. And, and I know you got to go, but what's shocking to me, and I'll just throw out the statistic really quickly, is when I wrote my first book back in 2013 and did the research, 85 to 95% of businesses that start ups would fail, right? We all know that. That's the most risky time, is 1 to 5 years. Not anymore. When I wrote Exit Rich, I did the research again and learned that only 30% of startups will go out of business. That out of 27.6 million companies, those businesses that have been in business 10 years or longer, 70% of those businesses will now go out of business. 70%. It flip-flopped. It completely flip-flopped. And you hear about the public companies all the time, like Toys R Us, Kmart, JCPenney's, Montgomery Ward, GNC closed down 900 locations. But you're not hearing about the private companies on every street corner, in every town, in every state across our great nation. These businesses are dropping like flies, and they're being forced to sell for pennies on the dollar, close their business, or even worse, file bankruptcy. And that's terrible, because these business owners have made sacrifices, huge sacrifices along the way. They poured their heart, their soul, their energy into their business, and it's not fair for them to exit poor.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, and all it takes is, I think what our listeners are doing, and people that buy your book, is taking a step and learning a little bit every day, every week, every month. Just take the responsibility to learn a little bit and take an action. That's all you've got to do, is take small actions again and again, and you'll get to where you want to be. Michelle, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm so happy you wrote the book. I think it's great and well needed. And it sounds like if we were in the same city, you and I could sit down for a glass of wine and agree with each other for a couple hours.
We could.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm very passionate about this. That's
I can tell. I can tell. All
Thank you
right.
so much for having me on. I love to come back. And I would love all of your listeners. You know what? They can also, can I give out another way to get in touch with me?
Absolutely. Yeah.
They can text Michelle to 888-526-5750. And if they text Michelle there, then my website pops up along with all my social media that they can follow me or contact me. I'm very passionate about helping business owners, not only saving their business, but selling their business.
Can you give us the number one more time?
Sure. 888-526-5750.
I love it. And just say Michelle just text the word Michelle.
Michelle. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then
excellent.
Immediately they'll get a pop-up with all my social media and my website.
Okay. What a great way to get in touch.
Rich will pop up too.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Dominic. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
For sure. We'll talk to you again. Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, Rick, we've got this segment called Dragon's Eggs with Rick Tack. What kind of wisdom do you have for us today?
Well, I'll share one of my little nest eggs with you. In the work that I do with folks, a lot of times I'll do a bit of a quote and then get some feedback. So here's one for everybody. If I had 8 hours to chop down a tree, I would spend 6 sharpening my axe. And that was something that Abraham Lincoln said. So to me, it speaks to planning and preparation, being proactive, getting things ready before you actually do the action, right? So if you're being reactive all the time and putting out fires, you won't have a chance to do some proper planning for the things that are coming in the future. So you need to spend time sharpening your axe. That way, cutting down the tree is going to be a lot easier, right? So if you're being reactive, most cases means you're not following a standard process. It's like the 5-person closet shop we did a SWIFT assessment for recently. They found a lot of waste because they were reacting to site issues. So when they would show up on site, all they did was reacting to the other sub-trades. They were reacting to the owners. So this way, if you're able to go there with a plan, you let everybody know what the expectations are, and you try to follow that process, and then you should have less distractions. You should have less things that you're reacting to, right? So that's really, in a nutshell, that's what we're talking about.
Great advice. Great insight. Thanks, Rick.
Good stuff.